The human brain is an incredibly complex organ. It contains billions of tiny cells called neurons. Neurons are the building blocks of the nervous system. They are responsible for everything we do, from thinking and feeling to moving and breathing. Neurons are like tiny messengers. They carry information throughout the body in the form of electrical and chemical signals. These signals allow us to experience the world around us, learn new things, and create memories. Without neurons, we wouldn't be able to function. Neurons come in all shapes and sizes, but they all have the same basic structure. They have a cell body, which contains the neuron's nucleus and other important organelles. Branching out from the cell body are dendrites, which receive signals from other neurons. The neuron also has a long, thin fiber called an axon, which carries signals away from the cell body to other neurons. Imagine you are holding a book and you want to pass it to a friend across the room. Your arm acts like a neuron, carrying the book, the signal, from one point to another. The dendrites are like your fingers, receiving the book from another person. The cell body is like your shoulder, processing the signal and deciding where to send it next. The axon is like your arm, carrying the signal down its length. At the end of the axon is a structure called the axon terminal. This is where the signal is passed on to another neuron. When a neuron receives a signal from another neuron, it creates a small electrical impulse called an action potential. Think of this as a spark of electricity traveling down the axon. This electrical signal travels down the axon to the axon terminal. The axon terminal of one neuron doesn't actually touch the dendrite of the next neuron. There is a tiny gap between them called the synapse. This is where the electrical signal is converted into a chemical signal. When the action potential reaches the axon terminal, it causes the release of chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. These neurotransmitters cross the synapse and bind to receptors on the dendrites of the next neuron. This binding can either excite or inhibit the next neuron, making it more or less likely to fire its own action potential. There are two main types of synapses: electrical and chemical. Electrical synapses are less common than chemical synapses. In an electrical synapse, the neurons are physically connected by tiny channels called gap junctions. This allows the electrical signal to pass directly from one neuron to the next. Electrical synapses are very fast and allow for synchronized activity between neurons. Chemical synapses are more complex. In a chemical synapse, the electrical signal is converted into a chemical signal that crosses the synaptic cleft. This process is slower than electrical transmission, but it allows for more flexibility and control over the signal. Neurons don't work in isolation. They are organized into complex networks that allow them to communicate with each other and carry out complex tasks. These networks are constantly changing and adapting in response to new experiences. This is the basis of learning and memory. When we learn something new, new connections are formed between neurons. The more we use these connections, the stronger they become. This is why practice makes perfect. Unfortunately, sometimes things can go wrong with synapses. Defective synapses have been implicated in a wide range of neurological and psychiatric disorders, including Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, schizophrenia, and autism. Psychoactive drugs, both medicinal and recreational, also exert their effects by altering neurotransmission at synapses. For example, some antidepressants work by increasing levels of certain neurotransmitters in the brain, while drugs like cocaine and amphetamines work by blocking the reuptake of neurotransmitters, leading to an overstimulation of certain brain circuits.